You see them everywhere, sharing quotes, speaking in energy, using words like frequency, vibration, and alignment. But something feels off, like a costume that doesn't quite fit, like a performance for an audience that isn't even watching. Because here's the truth. Most awakened people are still asleep, not because they lack information, but because they've mistaken knowledge for transformation. They've swapped one identity for another, the seeker, the light worker, the chosen one. And the ego loves it, because now it's not chasing money or fame, it's chasing enlightenment. And as long as it stays in motion, as long as it chases, it never has to surrender. This is the trap, not the darkness, but the illusion of light. The spiritual trap isn't loud, it's polished, peaceful on the surface, empty underneath. You wear the beads, burn the sage, say the mantras, but your nervous system still vibrates with the same fear it did before the journey began. You speak of detachment, but you're clinging to an image. You post about surrender, but can't sit in silence without checking who's watching. This isn't judgment, it's a mirror. Because the ego doesn't care if it wears a suit or a robe, as long as it gets to exist. And now, it hides behind awakened. It pretends to dissolve by becoming more sophisticated, more aware, more spiritual than others. But real awakening, it humbles you. It breaks you down until you can't pretend anymore, until there's no one left to impress, not even yourself. That's the moment the trap loses power, not when you transcend the ego, but when you see it and stop feeding it with spiritual identity. No one tells you how brutal it actually is to wake up. Not the Instagram kind, the real kind. It's not all peace and presence. It's grief. It's emptiness. It's facing everything you used to blame the world for, and realizing it was inside you all along. You start to see that most of what you called growth was just clever rebranding of control. Trying to vibrate higher so you didn't have to feel your pain. Trying to manifest so you didn't have to confront your scarcity. You thought the shadow was gone because it was quiet, but it was just hiding behind spiritual words, waiting for you to look away. And the scariest part, you built a new identity inside the illusion of having escaped one. But awakening doesn't add, it subtracts, until all that's left is what's real. And what's real is rarely aesthetic. It's not marketable. It's messy, raw, unfiltered. But in that rawness, you meet yourself for the first time. This is the turning point. Not the moment you gain something new, but the moment you stop pretending. You stop speaking like a mystic and start listening like a child. You stop performing alignment and start living honesty. And it's terrifying, because now there's no script to follow, no guru to copy, no system to belong to. You're alone, but finally real. that's when the body starts to exhale. The masks drop, and something ancient inside you whispers, "This is it." No visions, no downloads, just presence, just truth. You no longer need to transcend anything. You finally realize there's nothing wrong with being here. Nothing to fix, nothing to escape. And ironically, that's where real transformation begins. Not through escape, but through surrender to the ordinary, to the raw, human, boring truth of now. That's the path no one wants, because it doesn't feel special, but it's the only one that's real. Real awakening doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with quiet, a kind of stillness that scares the ego, because there's nothing left to prove and nowhere left to run. You wake up one day and realize you don't need to be special anymore. You're done chasing purpose. You're done chasing high vibrations. You're just here. You wash the dishes. You sit in silence. You walk without needing meaning to be attached to every step. And that's when the magic begins. Not the loud kind, the subtle kind, the kind that grows in emptiness, the kind that doesn't need validation to exist. You start telling the truth, even when it makes you less likable. You feel everything fully, without numbing it with positivity. You stop trying to shine and just allow yourself to be. And in that permission, others feel safe to do the same. Because what they needed wasn't your perfection, it was your presence. You're not here to be admired, you're here to be real. And that's the one thing the false awakening can't imitate. You begin to realize something radical. No one is coming to wake you up. Not a guru, not a book, not a YouTube video. Because awakening isn't given, it's chosen. In every moment, especially the moments no one sees. The spiritual ego loves an audience, but real awareness grows in silence. In the decisions you make when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when there's nothing to gain. That's where truth lives, in the friction between what's easy and what's honest. And that's why the trap is so seductive. It looks like awakening. It sounds like wisdom. It feels like safety. But it's just another layer, another illusion to outgrow. You don't need more tools, more courses, more cosmic jargon. You need stillness. You need discomfort. You need to sit in your own presence long enough to see what's actually there, beneath the identity, beneath the role, beneath the performance. And that takes more courage than any ritual ever will. Eventually, the performance exhausts you. You get tired of curating your healing, tired of speaking in spiritual code, tired of pretending to be high vibe when your heart is heavy. And in that exhaustion, you stumble into honesty, not the polished kind, the trembling, unscripted kind, the kind that admits, I don't know, I'm still hurting, I'm not there yet. And that's the moment it all shifts. Because what breaks the spell isn't more enlightenment, it's more humanness. Not escaping the shadow, but learning to sit beside it, without trying to fix it, without making it mean something cosmic. The more real you become, the less you need to say. And the more you say, the less anyone truly hears. Because truth doesn't need language, it has a frequency, and that frequency is felt, not spoken. So you stop teaching, stop converting, stop performing, and finally, you just exist, not as an identity, but as a presence. And that presence, it's more awakening than any spiritual practice could ever simulate. When the noise dies, you meet the one thing you've been avoiding all along, yourself. Not the spiritual version, not the curated one, the one who still gets triggered, still doubts, still bleeds quietly behind the smile. And for the first time, you don't try to fix it. You don't run to a mantra, a quote, a ritual. You just stay. And in that staying, the spell breaks. Not with drama, but with stillness. Because the real awakening isn't found in light. It's found in the dark room you stopped running from. It's found in the breath you stayed with when everything screamed for distraction. You begin to feel different, not because you're enlightened, but because you're finally here, present, unpolished, whole. And that presence, that raw, unfiltered hum of truth, it speaks louder than any teaching ever could. Others may not understand you now. Some may even fall away. But the ones who stay, they feel it. Not what you say, but what you carry. And what you carry is the one thing this world truly needs, an unshakable commitment to being real. Eventually, you stop chasing awakening. You stop trying to feel a certain way, look a certain way, become a certain someone. You realize there's no finish line, no final download, no golden light waiting to crown you awakened. It was never about arriving. It was about remembering that even in your confusion, you were whole. Even in your fear, you were love. Even in your shadow, you were sacred. And now, you begin to live like it. Quietly, deliberately, without performance. You no longer need to post your realizations. You live them. You no longer need to explain your frequency. You embody it. And the people meant to find you, they do. Not because of what you say, but because of what you don't say. Your stillness becomes a beacon. Your presence becomes a message. And without trying to awaken anyone, you remind them of something ancient, something they thought they lost, but always carried within. So now you know. Most awakened people are still asleep. Not because they failed, but because they stopped too soon. They mistook insight for transformation, language for embodiment, image for truth. But you're beginning to feel something deeper. Not the rush of realization, but the weight of remembrance. The stillness after the storm. The space where there's nothing left to add and nothing left to hide. This is where the real journey begins. Not up, not forward, but inward. And no audience, no identity, just presence. And in that presence, you're not chasing light anymore. You are the light, sitting calmly in your shadow, unafraid of the dark. You don't need to prove it, or name it, or brand it. You just live it. And in doing so, you become the quiet reminder that the deepest truth was never complicated, only hidden behind the noise of trying